In a small southern town, two officers pull over a black man on a quiet night. Their words drip with disdain, their actions fueled by prejudice as they cuff him without cause. Mocking him, belittling him, they toss him into the back of their squad car, convinced they'll never face consequences. But what they don't know, this man isn't just another victim of their unchecked authority. The tables are about to turn in a way that will leave them, and everyone watching, speechless. Because the next time they see him, he won't be behind bars. He'll be sitting high on the bench, as the judge deciding their fate. Before we jump into today's story, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. If you love powerful stories of justice, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, so you never miss what's coming next. Now, let's get started. The man they thought they could humiliate wasn't just anyone. His name was Marcus Hayes, a man of quiet strength and unshakable resolve. To the officers that night, he seemed like an easy target. Dressed casually in a hoodie and jeans, driving an old sedan, he fit the image of someone they thought they could overpower. But appearances, as they would soon learn, can be deceiving. Marcus wasn't just a man trying to make his way home that night. He was a Harvard-educated lawyer, a fierce advocate for justice, and someone who had dedicated his life to dismantling the very kind of corruption these officers embodied. Yet he didn't flaunt his achievements. He believed in humility, in letting actions speak louder than words. But as Marcus sat in the back of that squad car, his hands cuffed and his dignity trampled, he wasn't just silent. He was calculating. Little did those officers know, every word they sneered at him, every unlawful act they committed, was being etched into his mind, piece by piece. What they saw as their authority was, in reality, their undoing, because Marcus Hayes was about to become the one man they never expected to face. "You people never learn, do you?" one of the officers sneered as they yanked Marcus out of his car. The words stung, not because they hurt Marcus personally, but because they embodied the very rot he had spent years fighting. They patted him down aggressively, making snide remarks about drugs and weapons they already knew weren't there. When their search turned up nothing, they didn't stop. Instead, they fabricated a reason to arrest him. A broken taillight that wasn't broken. A resisting arrest charge when he had done nothing but comply. The humiliation didn't end there. At the station, they paraded Marcus through the halls, cracking jokes as they processed him. "Another one for the record," one said. They made sure to leave him in the most uncomfortable cell, alone, cold, and stripped of dignity. But Marcus's silence wasn't weakness. It was strategy. With every passing moment, he absorbed their cruelty, their disregard for justice. What they saw as their power was nothing more than their own downfall, because Marcus wasn't just another victim of their abuse. He was the storm they didn't see coming, and soon they would find themselves caught in its eye. A week after his release, Marcus walked into the courthouse not as a defeated man seeking justice, but as someone who wielded it. Dressed in a sharp suit with an air of calm authority, he entered the chambers, his presence commanding attention. Unbeknownst to the officers, Marcus had spent years as one of the most respected defense attorneys in the state, with a record of exposing corrupt practices and holding law enforcement accountable. But that wasn't all. Marcus had recently been appointed as a judge, a position he had worked tirelessly to earn, despite countless obstacles placed in his path by those who underestimated him. As fate would have it, the officers' actions that night hadn't gone unnoticed. A bystander had recorded their misconduct, and Marcus's name had surfaced as the judge assigned to oversee their internal affairs case. When the officers walked into the courtroom, smug and confident, they froze at the sight of Marcus behind the bench. Their jaws tightened, their arrogance replaced with visible unease. Marcus's calm, measured voice filled the courtroom. "Shall we begin?" he said, his gaze steady, his expression unreadable. What they didn't yet realize was that this wasn't just a trial. It was a reckoning, and Marcus was holding the scales of justice firmly in his hands. The courtroom was silent, but the tension was palpable. Marcus sat tall behind the bench, his calm demeanor masking the storm brewing beneath. "Officer Daniels and Officer Blake," he began, his voice even but unyielding, "you stand accused of misconduct, false arrest, and abuse of power. Let's hear your account of that night." The officers shifted uncomfortably. Daniels, the more vocal of the two, spoke first. "Your Honor, the suspect, the individual, was acting suspiciously. We were just doing our job." His words were laced with rehearsed confidence, but his darting eyes betrayed him. Marcus nodded slowly, then leaned forward. "Suspicious how, officer?" "Let's be specific." Daniels faltered, scrambling for an answer. "Well, he wasn't cooperative, and his car had a broken taillight." "That wasn't broken," Marcus interjected, his tone sharper now. "A quick inspection after my release confirmed that, didn't it?" The courtroom murmured as the officers stiffened, their carefully crafted facade beginning to crack. Marcus continued, methodically dissecting their statements, pointing out inconsistencies, and presenting evidence collected by witnesses. Then came the recordings. The grainy cell phone footage showed everything: their baseless accusations, the mocking insults, the unnecessary force. The courtroom watched in stunned silence as the evidence played out, the truth laid bare. And yet Marcus wasn't finished. With every question, every piece of evidence, he drew the courtroom deeper into the story. The officer's confidence crumbled under the weight of the facts. But there was one more reveal that no one saw coming, one final piece of the puzzle that would bring the case to its breaking point. And when Marcus presented it, the entire room would feel the impact. "Before we proceed any further," Marcus said, his voice slicing through the courtroom silence, "there's one more piece of evidence I'd like to present." The officers exchanged uneasy glances, their confidence eroded by the mounting proof against them. Marcus gestured toward the bailiff, who handed him a sealed envelope. Slowly, deliberately, Marcus opened it and pulled out a document. "This," Marcus said, holding it up, "is a detailed internal report from your own department. It outlines multiple complaints filed against you, Officer Daniels and Officer Blake, for misconduct, excessive force, and racial profiling. Complaints that, until now, have mysteriously disappeared before any formal action could be taken." The courtroom erupted into murmurs, but Marcus raised his hand, restoring silence. "But that's not all. This report also includes sworn statements from your former colleagues, statements that confirm your repeated abuse of authority and your blatant disregard for justice." Daniels jumped to his feet. "This is a setup," he shouted, his face flushed with anger. "We're being targeted." Marcus didn't flinch. He met Daniels' outburst with an icy calm. "Targeted? No, officer. This is accountability." He turned his attention back to the room. "And here's the final, undeniable truth. The actions of these officers weren't just an isolated incident. They were part of a pattern that ends here, today, in this courtroom." The officers sat frozen, their faces pale as the weight of their actions came crashing down. Marcus's voice softened but lost none of its strength. "You thought your badges made you untouchable. You thought no one would hold you accountable. But justice doesn't discriminate. It doesn't care about your rank, your power, or your privilege." The gavel struck, reverberating through the room. The case wasn't just about exposing their guilt, it was about sending a message, and Marcus Hayes had delivered it with unwavering precision. The courtroom sat in silence as Marcus delivered his final words. "Justice isn't just a concept, it's a responsibility, a duty to uphold fairness, dignity, and truth. And when those who are meant to protect it fail, it's up to the system and the people to remind them of what it stands for." The jury's verdict was swift and unanimous. Guilty. The officers were stripped of their badges, their power, and their illusion of invincibility. But the story didn't end with their punishment. It continued with the ripples Marcus had set into motion. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed Marcus, eager for a statement. He stood tall, his voice steady as he spoke to the crowd. This case isn't just about two officers. It's about every person who has suffered in silence, every voice that's gone unheard. Today, we took a step toward change, but the fight for justice is far from over. It's a fight we all share. The community that had once felt powerless saw hope in Marcus's actions. His courage became a beacon, inspiring others to stand against corruption and demand accountability. And for Marcus, this wasn't the end of his journey. It was a reminder of why he had chosen this path in the first place. As he walked away from the courthouse, Marcus reflected on the night that had brought him here. He could still hear the officers' mocking laughter, feel the cold steel of the handcuffs. But now, those memories didn't weigh him down. They fueled his resolve. The moral of his story was clear. No matter how deep the roots of injustice run, they can be uprooted by those brave enough to confront them. And no matter how underestimated or overlooked a person might be, their strength can change the world, one act of courage at a time. Thank you for watching. Maya's story reminds us that standing up for what's right can create lasting change. Whether it's overcoming adversity or challenging injustice, your voice matters. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment with your thoughts on the story. Let's keep this conversation going. And remember, sharing these stories helps spread the message of justice and fairness, one act of courage at a time. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it today.